So what if the single biggest thing that pushes a man to improve himself isn't what you think it is? Today, we're going to dig into a really provocative theory from the manosphere that says all personal growth, it all comes from one single and, honestly, kind of surprising motivator. And it is, well, it's blunt. Yeah, you heard that right. Our source material does not pull any punches. This right here is the central and, yeah, intentionally shocking claim that we're going to unpack. It's a statement that's absolutely designed to get your attention, and according to the author, it's the hidden key to unlocking a man's full potential.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The source points out that this idea makes for some really strange bedfellows. On one side, you've got critics from the far left who would, understandably call this objectifying or a classic case of toxic masculinity. But on the other side, you've also got these hardcore red pill guys who argue for that whole Tony Montana model. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. According to this theory we're looking at today, both of those sides are completely missing the point.
So how in the world does the source build this argument? Well, here's our roadmap. First, we're going to lay out the four-pillar model that this whole thing is built on. Then, we'll look at why three of those pillars can kind of stand on their own. After that, we'll get to the heart of it, the one driving pillar that supposedly forces all the others to grow. And finally, we'll pull it all together for the final takeaway. All right, let's get right into it. Section 1, the four-pillar model, which is basically presented as the essential framework for a man's life. So the theory proposes that you can pretty much divide a man's life into these four big buckets. You've got health, which is your physical fitness, how you look, all that stuff. Then there's wealth, pretty straightforward, your money and status. Then we have relationships, which in this context specifically means game, your actual skill in attracting women. And finally, higher purpose, which is about your sense of meaning, your mission. The idea is that guys are always trying to find a balance across these four things. Okay, so let's put this model to the test, right? We're on to section 2, the three independent pillars, where we're going to explore why, according to this theory, most goals don't actually force you to grow across the board. First up, health. Let's say you pour every ounce of energy into fitness. You completely max out that health pillar. But does that force you to get richer or find some deeper meaning in life? The source says, absolutely not. You can just end up as what it calls a gym cell. Physically a specimen, but seriously lacking in the other key parts of your life. And it's the exact same principle for wealth. You could become a workaholic, a multimillionaire, and just max out that wealth bar. But again, the argument is this doesn't force you to get in shape or get good with women. You can just become that classic rich guy who's let everything else in his life go. And you can probably guess where this is going with the last independent pillar, higher purpose. You could dedicate your entire life to meditation, find some deep spiritual enlightenment, and push this bar all the way to the top. But you could totally do this while living like a hermit, with no money, completely neglecting your body. The growth in this one area just doesn't necessarily spill over. So here's the crucial point, the main takeaway from all that. According to this model, you can become an absolute master of your health, your wealth, or your higher purpose without being forced to grow in any other area. They're basically independent variables. And that brings us to the absolute core of the argument in section 3. The one driving pillar. This is what's called the forcing mechanism of relationships. So why is this pillar the big exception to the rule? Okay, so it all starts here. A guy decides, you know what? I'm going to get better at my dating life. I'm going to work on my game. So he starts learning, he starts going out, and he sees a little bit of progress. That relationships bar starts to tick up, even while all the others are still low. But then, bam, he hits a wall. A hard limit. The source calls it a glass ceiling. His progress with women just completely stalls out. Why? Because his foundation, his health, his wealth, his purpose, it's just not there. He simply can't get any better without it. And this is the whole engine of the theory. This is the forcing mechanism. To break through that glass ceiling and keep getting better at dating, he is now compelled to work on those other areas. He realizes he has to start dressing better. He has to hit the gym. He needs more cash for dates, so maybe he gets a side hustle. He figures out he needs to actually be a more interesting person, so he starts exploring his purpose. So look what happens. This simple act of trying to get better with women has now forced the other pillars, health, wealth, and purpose, to rise up. They've been dragged up to meet his new ambitions. And now that he has that new, stronger foundation in place, what happens? Well, he can finally smash through that old ceiling. His progress in the relationships pillar is totally unlocked, and it just shoots up to a whole new level. Now, this is really crucial. The source argues this isn't a one-and-done kind of deal. Not at all. This is a repeating cycle. To get from being okay with women to being good, or from good to great, he's going to hit new, higher glass ceilings that force even bigger improvements in his health, wealth, and purpose. It's basically a continuous engine for growth.
So what does this all add up to? Let's bring it all home for our final section, the final takeaway. Is this really some kind of unifying theory of male improvement?
The source summarizes its entire philosophy with this one metaphor. The idea is that focusing on relationships, on game, is like the incoming tide. It just naturally lifts every other boat in the harbor right along with it.
All right, so let's just do a quick final rundown of the logic we just walked through. It starts with those 4 pillars. Then it establishes that 3 of them, health, wealth, and purpose, can be worked on in a vacuum. Then it says relationships are unique because you keep hitting these glass ceilings. Smashing through those ceilings forces you to level up the other 3. And the final conclusion, therefore, is that chasing women is the ultimate driver of a man's overall self-improvement.
And that really just leaves us with the final question, doesn't it? Is this a powerful, maybe even useful model for understanding what motivates men to grow? A system that kind of hijacks a primal drive for holistic improvement? Or is it a really problematic oversimplification that reduces a man's entire complex life down to just a single pursuit? That's the core of this whole controversial theory, and something for you to think about.